Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast offseason preview series, where we're going to dive into all 30 NBA teams and talk about what their upcoming off seasons are going to look like. Today, we're talking about the Los Angeles Clippers, who have a relatively simple offseason that could turn complicated depending on the decision of one human being. But first, go subscribe to the Game Theory Podcast. Go to YouTube, go to Spotify. We have fixed the Spotify feed for everybody wondering. We have gotten that together. Go subscribe on the many channels that we have this thing available, Apple Podcasts, wherever. We really appreciate it. Over 35,000 of you have come and joined us over on YouTube. Go hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Don't be afraid. But it's time to talk about the Clippers, Bryce. So the LA Clippers ended up giving the Denver Nuggets a real run in the Western Conference playoffs, right? Ultimately, 7 games. They had a great close to the season as well, but I don't know. Do you feel like their playoff performance based on how they closed the season was slightly disappointing? I think we both picked the Clippers to actually beat the Nuggets in that series, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to say disappointing. I did think that this was a team that could really make some noise. It's a team along with the Nuggets that I wonder if they were on the other side of the bracket, if maybe there's a potential that we'd be seeing them in the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder. I don't know if either of those teams beat the Wolves. I don't know. But the fact that those two teams had to play each other in the first round, it just is what it is. I'm not complaining or calling for a change or anything like that. I'm just saying they did take the Nuggets to the 7 games, and then the Nuggets took the Thunder to 7 games. And so it was just like, I don't know how far away I think they actually are. It's a really interesting team. Like you said, it's kind of a simple offseason, which is a little bit nerve-wracking for me in terms of seems like they got to get a little bit better, because one thing they are going to do is get a little bit older. And so maybe a little bit of a disappointment, but I think this was a really good team that they still had a quality playoff showing, even though they ended up losing in the first round.
They had a quality playoff showing in the first round. And yet I think that if I was a Clippers fan, I would just be like, I really enjoy this team. I really love this team. I think Ty Lue is like definitely the right coach. Kawhi Leonard continues to be just an absolute monster. James Harden got an MVP vote, right? And we'll talk about him throughout the entirety of this video, basically. Norman Powell had arguably career season, tailed off a little bit late, but, suffered that injury in the middle of the season that kind of, sapped his effectiveness here and there. But I think what would worry me is just that this team deals with health factors all the time because of their age, and they are getting a little bit older at this point, right? And I would worry that this could have been like the window, this year could have been like their best potential year. I think if and when it falls for them with this roster, if they decide to keep it together, it could fall like in a hurry a little bit. And that kind of leads into my main question with the Clippers offseason, and that is, what do you do with James Harden, right? We're coming off of really another year where James Harden is disappointed in the playoffs. Like, that's the reality of the situation here. He had a great regular season. He was critical in everything that they did from a success perspective in the regular season. They needed somebody who could create offense like Harden, but he was fairly efficient this year. His field goal percentage, tied his career low outside of his rookie season. He only made 35.2% of his threes. You look at the assist numbers, 8.7, that's great, but the turnover numbers have kind of spiked back to that like 2021-22 era where he was like in Brooklyn and Philly, particularly in Brooklyn when he was like really responsible for a lot. He has a player option this summer for right around 36, let's call it, $1 million. I'm trying to figure out how you manage that situation if both of your Harden and the Clippers almost. Because if you're the Clippers, you're almost looking at this like, okay, so look at the teams that have cap space. The Nets probably don't really want James Harden. We've been down that road before. The Wizards can clear some space. I don't really see it for them, right? The Pistons, I don't see it for them. There's too much overlap with Cade Cunningham. I don't think Chicago's going to want to do it. Like, I don't think New Orleans like makes a lot of sense to me with like Zion and James Harden. That doesn't really track to me. The teams that have space are the teams that are like kind of at the bottom of the league right now. And you're not going to go and take a 35, 36-year-old point guard and try to, make that work and take a big leap for the most part. But if you're Harden, I think that coming off the year that I would want more money than this. But is there a team out there other than the Clippers for Harden that you can see in any way, shape, or form making sense here? Because I'm really struggling to find it, to be honest.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I want to start is with the first question here is, do we think he picks it up? And like this is always interesting conversation of, okay, there is an automatic $36 million. I have no doubt that if Harden declines that option, he would find a long-term deal that is more than 36, right? Like he would get a 2 or 3 year deal that is more than 36.
For what it's worth, Bryce, I don't think he would.
You don't think he would get like a 2 for 50?
If he straight up, you're saying for multiple years, getting multiple years of guaranteed money.
Correct.
Okay. I thought you meant on a per season basis.
No, absolutely not. No, like, so I'm just trying to lay out like his options here in terms of he could go that route and lock in 2 or 3 years at lower than 36, but more guaranteed than 36. But the caveat is, if I'm Harden, I just had a pretty good season where I played a ton of games. If I'm feeling good and healthy and only he knows his body, I lock in that 36 and then hit free agency the next offseason where maybe it's 2 years and not 20, it's a little bit lower. So what do we think he does? What is the best play for Harden? At his age, I feel like the smarter thing is to lock in the longer term deal. It is my vibe, but I'm always a little bit more like risk management in terms of those things.
I think that the right move here would be for the Clippers and Harden to come to some sort of understanding and say like, okay, let's do, instead of a 1 year, $36 million deal, let's do like a 2 year, I don't know.
So that's the thing. What's the number, right? Like what do you have to get to for him to be enticed by this?
65-ish to me. Like if you gave him an extra year at 30, I wonder if he would have some interest in that maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like is that the number? Like somewhere in that ballpark?
That's more palatable to me because listen, he truly did. I know the efficiency and the turnovers and all that. He did drive that offense this year. And listen, Kawhi was awesome when Kawhi played, and we did get 7 games of Kawhi in the playoffs, and he was good in the playoffs. But Kawhi ain't playing 60 games next year. He played 37 this season, and you at least got to get into the playoffs. And what they got there as the 5 seed is what it would have ended up, right? And so, like, they need James Harden. They need somebody to drive this offense for a lot of games, and he played 35 minutes a night. That is a nice season for a 35-year-old. That's a nice season for a non-35-year-old from James Harden. So I'm with you. Like if he is not in this plan for LA, then they better have a different plan. Like how are you going to replace all of that? Because he did do a lot for them.
You'd almost have to do it by like moving him for like a younger, probably less talented player and hope that you can develop that player.
Sure.
And again, like, I just don't know that I see the place for him, even in like a sign and trade, or if he like opts in and, there's an understanding that the two sides will come to some sort of trade agreement. Right. Like, I'm just not sure who the team is at the end of the day. Like maybe you could make the case for like a Miami going down this road if they really wanted to like try and continue contending.
The team that keeps popping it? I don't think they have the resources to do it. It's like send him to Dallas without Kyrie.
Sure.
Especially if he was just wanting to do the 1 year player option and play that out. It's like, okay, well, but I just like that they have to deal with the Kyrie contract down in Dallas anyway. So
yeah, and that's kind of the complicated piece of this, right? So if I'm Dallas, I don't disagree with you that it's interesting. Like, I wonder if there is a, like a PJ Washington, like Klay Thompson for James Harden move or something. Like, that feels like a lot to me, though, at the end of the day. I don't know if that feels like a lot, actually, because Klay's year was, up and down. Let's go.
Where's PJ going to play with the new roster? You know what I mean? Like, how much, what's his value and his minutes in Dallas? It just, something like this.
That's why I like the idea of it. Like, for Dallas, it's like, okay, we're fixing our, our need here at the point guard position for a year. We're using PJ, who also only has 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah.
Something around PJ for Harden is like somewhat interesting, especially because the Clippers could use, another like bigger forward, in my opinion, like a physical dude to slide Kawhi to like the 3 more consistently. Right. But yeah, it's hard to, but like, okay, let's say it is like a PJ Washington and something for Harden move. Who's driving offense?
That's what I was going to say. Is
at that point,
those are interesting names. Or if it was like PJ, and if you could get Najee Marshall from Dallas or something like some combination of those guys. But to your point, then those guys aren't driving offense the way you would need to be successful. You have a really fun wing room, and everybody knows how we feel about Ivica, but you have to find a way to drive offense. And I think what you said is interesting. Like, can you find a young guard somewhere in the league that could, not blow up, but like take on that role? Like, who is the guy that's ready for that, like you said, like Brooklyn's not going to want to do it. Like, who's the name that would be out there that, like Jay Ivey may be somebody that people are saying with Detroit, but James Harden, I don't think makes sense for Detroit. They're not doing that. Well,
like, I wonder if I'm just like spitballing here. So they have access to their non-taxpayer, right? Especially if you're trading James Harden, like, you really have access to it. Like, you can use the full non-taxpayer mid-level if you want.
Okay.
Like, is there like a Ty Jerome that you think could really come in and like step in and be your starting point guard and play at a super high level, and then you get PJ Washington and you fill out your roster like depth wise, right?
Sure. So
I don't think this is a good idea. I'm not advocating for it necessarily. I'm just saying that, like, is there a way that you could moneyball it where it's like, okay, let's move on from Harden. We don't think we're contending right now. Let's go get a couple of longer term pieces that we think really work for us.
Yeah, you bring in PJ, you bring in, like I said, Najee Marshall would be interesting to me. You bring in Ty Jerome, and somehow you manufacture all of the on-ball stuff with a couple of those guys. That's, again, I don't think I would do it. I think ultimately, if I'm LA, like, I hate to say run it back for a team that didn't really compete in the playoffs for like a championship, you know what I mean? That lost in the first round. Again, it was in 7, but I'm struggling to find the path that is more exciting than bringing back a team that I do like. I do like this team in general. And maybe you do that, Sam, like with the age they're all at. Do you just say like, hey, let's run it back. Maybe injuries play in our favor. Maybe we get the right matchup in the playoffs and we can make a run at this thing with, Harden back on. You get 1 more year into the Kawhi deal. We'll talk about Norm Powell in a second. I don't know. Maybe that is their best option.
I think that it's probably their best option to run this back for 1 more year with Harden. See if you can just catch lightning in a bottle again, like they did at the end of the year this year, and go from there. That's what stands out to me here, because you do have a bit of an older roster with Kawhi and Zubats. And the other big thing here for the Clippers that we really do need to talk about is the way that they have set themselves up for the summer of 2026.
Yeah.
That can't really change. Like, that feels like their big, okay, we're going all in on free agency in the summer of 2026, or we're going all in on trying to find like a star level player in the summer of 2026. That summer, the only guys they will have under contract are Kawhi Leonard. They will have a non-guaranteed deal for Bogdan Bogdanovic that, they can do what they will. They will have $19 million for Ivica Zubats, and they will have $10 million for Derek Jones, plus like $2.5 million for their first round pick this year if they want to use that. And then, a little bit of extra money for Cam Christie and, with whatever they do with Jordan Miller this summer, right? But they're going to have like $100 million in cap space if they want to use it in the summer of 2026. And I feel like that's probably more what they're gearing up toward in terms of the way that they build this roster. That's also why, if I'm them, I'm probably hoping that Harden is just good to opt in.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing an opt out and like, a deal in the middle, right? I would rather him just opt in, and then we can like rebuild and revamp this thing later.
That's where it gets complicated, right? With Harden, because as you just laid out in that summer, you just talked through it. If you give him the 2 for 65, that we talked about earlier, all of a sudden there's 30 more million on the books in that 26 offseason. So that's, as I look at their roster, I look at the cap sheet, I am kind of just like, man, I honestly, if I was them, I would love Harden to just think his best path was to just exercise the player option and play next year on 36 million. And if I'm LA, I would be perfectly fine with that. Coming off the year he had, where we're at as a team, where we're trying to set ourselves up, all of that, I would be completely comfortable with that. Because if he wants something different, then we get into the conversation we just had of, okay, do we give him that money and compromise some of that flexibility? Do we go out and find the trade? If we find the trade, Sam, then are we not quite as competitive as we want to be? Because I think this team will be competitive in the West next year. I think they'll be competitive. But we're not going to be calling them title contenders in the offseason, but they'll be competitive. If you trade James Harden and let's say you try the Ty Jerome and he can't handle starter level stuff, or you end up with Tyus Jones, who I love, but it's like, this is way over his head for that spot. Now you're not as competitive, and that, I don't want to say it wastes a season, but then you're not as competitive for your fan base in the new arena and all of that.
Well, the thing it does is it wastes the season of Kawhi.
Correct.
When you don't know how long you have his health for, essentially. Sure. Like, imagine if he's healthy next year.
Yeah.
And you feel like, you're really in a chance to compete and you've gotten rid of James Harden.
Yeah.
But if I'm Harden, though, and this is why most of this conversation is about Harden, right? I feel like I want an extra year. Like, I want that extra money at the end of the day. So, and I want to lock that in now before I'm going into my age 37 season.
Yeah.
Like, I would think that, 22-9, having gotten an MVP vote, as ridiculous as that was this year, that I've probably deserved a bit more security in the extra year. So that push-pull to me is really the key to their offseason. If I'm the Clippers, I just want them to opt in, and I'm really happy. If I'm Harden, I feel like I want more.
Yeah.
And the issue for James, though, is I don't know where he gets more. Like, I don't know where his leverage is elsewhere on the market.
Yeah.
To be able to get a bunch more money. I'm not sure I actually see it, to be honest, outside of, like you said, Dallas. Like, maybe you could make a case for Miami, but like Dallas, it's hard to construct a deal. Like, it basically has to be PJ Washington and Clay, and Clay has a deal that extends into, the summer after next summer.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, PJ Washington is on an expiring that you have to continue to pay him as well. So I really think I just want Harden to opt in if I'm the Clippers. And I'm just not sure where the leverage is for the Clippers to even like agree to a sign and trade to get him where he would theoretically want to go if he's trying to get extra money.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And it is the biggest thing. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because he does kind of, while he doesn't have that leverage, he does have the decision, right? Like, this player option gives him the decision to do that and then put them in a tough spot. So it will be fascinating to see how they are able to manage this.
Yeah, I think that's right. The next piece of this is just the, trade, keep, extend Norman Powell piece of it. Norman Powell is coming off of, again, just genuinely a career year. He averaged 22 points a game, shooting 48, 42, 80 from the field. He played 60 games this year. Just, unfortunately struggled a bit with a few things later in the year in terms of injury. I, again, think that they probably don't want to go down the road of an extension unless it's really on their terms, where it's okay, we're getting Norman Powell for, a couple of years beyond this one at less than 20 million. But if I'm Norman Powell, I'm looking at this saying, I just put up a career year at age 31 years old. I turned 32 in, a week here, basically. I would want more than 20 million in order to resign. I think I've earned that at this point. So they have enough money. They have enough cap space, like going into the summer of 2026, to be able to really like extend one of these guys if they want to for an extra year or two. It's how much do you believe in Harden's body? How much do you believe in Harden's playoff, performances on some level too? And then with Powell, by the way, like I thought Norman Powell was up and down in the Nuggets series is maybe the way to put it. He's a bit of a roller coaster. It felt like every given night. So is he able to get all the way back to where he was early in the season? Yep. Or was that just like an unbelievable hot few months where he put together this incredible run of games?
Yeah, this is another one. And I'm with you as well. I think one of these guys, you can take their money into that 26 offseason just with, again, we already went through all the numbers, just how little that they have attached to all of these guys already. One more isn't going to just like tank that. Powell at 31 coming off the year he's having, I could understand if you think like historically the shooting has been really good. He had a 42% on 7 attempts. The volume went up, but he's right at a career 40% 3-point shooter. And even the field goal percent. So that was the big thing, I think, with Norm Powell in terms of this was the most field goal attempts per game. This was the most 3-point attempts per game that he's had in his career. Do you feel like he can take that offensive usage and stay there? Because Norman Powell averaged over 21 points per game, almost 22 points per game this season. It was just an incredible season for him. And so I think I would not want to trade him depending on what the offer would be because of what I outlined earlier with Harden. I want to go in next year and really compete with this team again. But if he's going to be unhappy because you aren't giving him an extension or not giving him an extension at the number, maybe LA's hands will be forced and then they have to go out and to our final question when we get to it, maybe that's your path to getting some younger players into this that you can start building, not 2 timelines necessarily or for the future, but get some young talent that I think this roster is a little bit short on right now.
Is this maybe the more interesting move if they want to do like a PJ Washington deal? Like, is there a Norm Powell, PJ Washington construction, or do we think that the Mavs just need like not necessarily scoring, but they just need somebody who can set the table as a guard?
The table. So that's it, because he would still give them a little bit something different than what they have in the backcourt position. Huh. And then with PJ, you get a useful player for LA. You actually
a little bit bigger.
Yeah, you shorten the contract in terms of that. So
it's the same length contract right now. You'd be in the same spot.
Oh, okay. They both expire. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're basically trading like bird rights for bird rights.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Interesting. I'd have to think a little more because I think what makes sense with Powell there is he makes way more sense than Harden, in my opinion, when Kyrie does come back. So it's like, okay, when Kyrie comes back, you can easily play them together. I mean, I guess the question would be is like, can you play like Kyrie, Norm, Clay all together, like figuring out the rotational stuff there? But that could be interesting. A little bit is like, is Kyrie back for the last month of the season and into the playoffs next year? Like, what's that all going to look like? I know this has ended up being a lot of Dallas conversation. I didn't intend for it to be, but it's interesting.
I wonder if there is something there. Cause like, I do think the Clippers, like one thing that they could use is a little bit more size in the front court. They could use somebody like a PJ to just bring like a all due respect to Nick Batum, I love Nick Batum. He's become this incredible shooter and playmaker at the size that he is, after being like this crazy athlete playmaker when he was younger, right? I wonder if they could use like a little bit more physicality. Like they're kind of skinny right now, right? Like it's Chris Dunn, it's Derek Jones.
Yeah.
These guys are both really, really tough, but they're like kind of thin, right? PJ is a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, like a little bit better of a rebounder than those guys, right? I wonder if somebody like that would help them.
Yeah, no,
PJ again, like PJ doesn't really have a role in Dallas is the other thing now because they're probably taking Cooper, it seems like.
Correct. That's the thing is PJ. So for Dallas, I think this would be a great addition. I like this idea in terms of the ones we've brought up. I'm sure there's other ideas out there as well for PJ. I was trying to look through other teams where maybe I think Norm could make a lot of sense with teams just because of that scoring ability. You know what I mean? Like just how many teams do we talk about needing a little bit of backcourt scoring punch? Does Orlando get in on this somehow? We always talk about like Anthony Simons and guys like that for Orlando. Could Norman Powell be a guy that Orlando likes to come in and give them that scoring punch? So I think there would be a few different teams that could get in on this if they decided to make this move. I don't know what the Orlando trade would look like, but they're a name that would be interesting.
Just to rapid fire a couple of things here. They do have access to their non-taxpayer. Again, I would think that they're probably going to use it either in a similar way to how the Warriors used it, which is with DeAnthony Melton, where they gave him like a 1-year deal on it. Cause again, I think they will want to keep their cap space like pretty clear, or they could like take it into the season now that you can use it as a trade exception in the middle of the season. I mean, a couple of names that like, I can see them liking Bruce Brown, right? Like, I think that he's a guy that just fits within what they tend to do. Maybe you could see like a Karis LeVert, I wonder. But you just traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic, obviously. So I don't know how enthusiastic you might be about that.
LeVert was a name as I was looking through my list here, was a name that popped off to me when we were talking about trading Harden. Like, obviously he's not going to come in and take all of that usage. In the same vein as what we were just talking about, Jake LaRavia is a little bit of a thicker wing forward type of player that could be interesting there. I don't know what DFS is going to do with the Lakers. Yabusele, we talked about Yabusele in the Sixers, that could be an interesting one with the Clippers.
If I'm Yabusele, like I'm probably getting multiple years somewhere. Like I would probably say that he probably shouldn't do like a 1-year deal with the Clippers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's trying to find the guys that like might be willing to do like a big 1-year number.
Yeah.
To me, like getting like 14 million for 1 year. Right. And probably having a bit of offensive punch is the key, because I feel like with Chris Dunn, with Derek Jones, with some of the other guys they have, like Kawhi, obviously Zubats is a great defender. I feel like you might want to get like one more offensive guy, and maybe it's like an off ball offensive guy too that can really work. Like honestly, like maybe use part of it on like Gary Harris, like a guy that can shoot and defend a little bit. I think the Clippers would probably like him in terms of just the way that he plays. That wouldn't be the full mid-level though. That would only be like a partial use of the mid-level for sure. The other thing is like backup big man, right? Like, is there a chance that somebody like Steven Adams would do this? And then using number 30, maybe on like a Ryan Kalkbrenner or a, Janai Broom or something like that to be able to fill the backup center position, which I think is a big one for them moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great call. We're almost 30 minutes into this and we hadn't mentioned that in terms of, as good as Ivica was all year, they didn't really have that backup 5. Like they were having to try it with Ben Simmons, who's, a free agent, or, Batum was playing it, or Eubanks, or, Eubanks is what he's has a non-guaranteed for next year. So we'll see how that plays out. So yeah, there's some interesting names out there in regards to that. You mentioned a couple. That's probably, I'm still interested to see like what Al Horford, some of the, like, what does he sign up? How does that look like with Boston? What kind of role does he sign up for moving forward? I'm interested in a couple of those older vets, even a Brook Lopez. What does his offseason look like now that I'm not signing? I don't know if these guys would, I think Horford could, would Brook sign up for a backup role with the Clippers? I don't know where some of these guys are at in their careers in regards to that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It is worth noting they are 17 million away from the luxury tax, even with Harden and Batum. So they are able to use their full non-taxpayer if they want, which again is $14.1 million. They do have trade exceptions, $6.5 million for PJ Tucker, $4.2 million for Bones Highland. They have some real flexibility here if they want to use it. Obviously, there are other free agents here. Amir Coffey, who they have full bird rights on. Jordan Miller, a guy that I would keep personally if I was them. I like Jordan Miller. It's weird to me that he has not yet carved out a role. I would try to keep him and retain him if I was there. They have his restricted free agency rights, I believe, as well. So we're in an interesting place here with the Clippers. I think that we can call it there on them. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, got the Substack, doing a little bit of work on Knicks Film School over there, moonlight in that as long as they're in the playoffs, however long that lasts for them. The Pistons Pulse podcast, and then, of course, right here, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We will be back with another one of these tomorrow. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.